My friend, Coville's father, died. The death was not a normal death. Police were involved. The dead body was taken for a post-mortem. A dead person was found in a cold street where he slept, Uncle. He was sitting in a chair, a young man. We were both sitting next to the dead body. The young man said, "We will not be here for long. We will have to wait till morning. We are waiting, we are waiting." He took a constable to take the Covier. Unwanted truth, he had to leave. We were sleeping in the night. We were talking about how the girl's life was going to be. The whole day's plan was a little bit different, a little bit scary. The environment was still moving. At the moment, the watch was finished. I wanted to wait, but no voice was coming. Then, that was the most terrifying night of my life. A night that I will never forget until I die. The year was 2013. At that time, my friend Kabir and I were living together in a rented mess. We were students then, under the pressure of studies. But that peace was not much. At the end, a call came from Cover's house. After receiving the call, Cover's mouth's expression in the moment changed. He had to talk about all the blood he had in his mouth. The thing is, he had no words, he had a heartache. Then he had a Kamal, there's a big problem. Your body is so sick. The situation is very serious. I need to get home today. I had a lot of fear. I didn't dare to ask anymore. He was afraid of me. I didn't dare to ask him. He was afraid of me. We both got up. We didn't have any. We were on our way to the Kubit's house. We were ready for a walk. Our friend's friend had a bike. We took the bike from her and did not take it. Then we thought, as if it was at night, there will be a jam or traffic. We will reach there, but it will be a bit more than that. At the middle of the road, there is a huge jam. It's possible that an oil tanker is going to be Destroprofit. And that was the middle of the road, which caused the traffic to slow down. The vehicles were slow. Our bike was really slow. The stability of the road was growing every time. It was constantly changing. If it was, there was no profit. To the gym, and after the break, we finally reached the Covier's house. When we reached the house, we heard a noise coming from afar. That tired voice, the voice of Covier's mouth, was like a paper. I could even understand that there was a big disaster. We left the bike, and we took the inside of the house. When we looked at the view that I saw, I was not at all proud. The father of the Covier's uncle, who I called him, he was asleep. He's had a strange sound. I felt like the voice of the voice was stuck. I thought that there was some scientific knowledge. He had this high condition. Covier's mother and sister were crying. The rest of the house's proprietors were trying to give them peace. But that was not doing any peace. I did not take a moment to take a call from her. I called for an ambulance. I talked to her, and gave her a call. Then I took the top of the phone. He collapsed on his father's chest and started crying uncontrollably. Watching that scene was a difficult test for me. I myself could not hold back my tears. The sound of crying continued to grow louder, and he immediately told that this was a need to do a post-mortem, because this is now a police case. The COVID family was very much in trouble. Police had to cut their ears so that they would not do a post-mortem. To remove the dead body, we have a certain danger. But the police were in trouble. They said, as a result, the death. Kabir was not willing to leave his father's body alone. I followed him and got into the ambulance. My uncle's body was put on a stretcher and taken to the back of the ambulance. Kovit, sitting beside me, was a silence. I was sitting beside him and sat down. I did not know the language of Santuna Nadi's language. He was a strange man who was in a sense of fear mixed with fear. The ambulance's inner thoughts had me to stop my breath. Ambulances woke up in the morning. At that time, at 1 o'clock, it was very cold outside. In the hospital's corner, there was a strange wind in the air. The siren started to go, and the energy started to increase. The wind starts to get more and more heavy. The driver opened the door. Amir and Kovier, together with the driver, found the stretcher. Police came to us to the hospital. First, the body was taken to the emergency ward. There, the doctor had to look for an exam. The doctor officially pronounced him dead and signed the paperwork for the post-mortem. Soon the body was wrapped from head to toe in a white shroud and taken straight toward the morgue. Kabir and I stayed with the body every moment. We reached a long, dark corridor next to the morgue, and the stretcher was placed in a shadowy corner at the very end. The place was dilapidated and had a distinct, eerie, haunted vibe. Kabir, a police constable, and I sat down nearby. A short distance away sat an old caretaker on a rickety chair. His face looked ghostly, sunken eyes with dark circles and wrinkled skin. He glanced at us and said, "The post-mortem won't happen today. The doctor will arrive tomorrow morning. The body stays here." I knew this was the norm in government hospitals, so I wasn't surprised, but a deep restlessness settled in my heart. After a while, the constable stepped outside, talking on his phone, likely giving a duty update or attending to a personal matter. Kabir and I were alone again. It's hard to describe that place. The walls were stained with old betel spit and grime. The air was thick with the suffocating stench of rotting fennel and formalin, making my head spin. Parts of the corridor were pitch black. I looked up hoping for a fan, but there was none. Suddenly, the atmosphere grew heavy. The temperature in that specific spot dropped unnaturally, becoming bone-chillingly cold. It felt as if someone was watching us closely. Just then, the old caretaker got up and walked toward the door. Peering through a small back window, he said to us, "You two stay here, keep an eye out. I'll be back in a few minutes from the washroom." With that, he vanished into the darkness outside. Now it was just the two of us, Kabir and I sitting in front of his father's body, covered in white cloth. The silence was so profound, it felt heavy. 20 minutes passed, but neither the caretaker nor the constable returned. Suddenly, Kabir grabbed my hand with a grip so tight it hurt. His hand was as cold as ice. Startled, I looked at him, then followed his gaze. What I saw made my blood run cold. Under that white shroud, the body was shivering violently. The entire cloth was shaking, as if the person inside was freezing and trembling uncontrollably. Yet, we knew Kabir's father was dead. We were paralyzed like statues. We tried to scream, but no sound came out of our parched throats. The flickering white tube light in the corridor added to the horror. In a trembling whisper, Kabir asked, "Kamal, what is happening? Is he still alive?" My heart hammered against my chest. Could a dead man come back to life? As I stared at the body, the shivering stopped just as abruptly as it had begun. Everything became still again, as if nothing had happened. But the terror was now etched into our very bones. Finally, the constable returned. Looking at the empty chair, he asked, "Where did that old man go?" Kabir somehow composed himself and said he went to the washroom. The constable looked annoyed. He glanced at the body, then at us, and said, "Kabir, come outside for a moment. I need to talk to you." My heart rate spiked. After what I had just witnessed, the thought of being left alone with the corpse for even a second was terrifying. I looked at Kabir, seeing the same raw fear in his eyes. But we didn't have the courage to disobey a police officer. I watched helplessly as they walked toward the main hospital building, about 100 yards away, until they disappeared into the darkness. Every second felt like an hour. The caretaker hadn't returned. I sat there in extreme agony, fearing the body would move again. I began reciting Ayatul Kursi and praying to Allah. Finally, the caretaker returned. I told him in a shaky voice that the constable had taken Kabir with him. He calmly replied, "Don't worry, it's a police case. They probably need him for signatures. He'll be back." His logic made sense, but my mind wouldn't rest. He shut the window with a loud clack to keep the mosquitoes out, and leaned back in his chair, falling into a deep sleep almost instantly. I was alone again. The tube light began acting up, buzzing and flickering on and off every few minutes. In this ghostly cycle of light and shadow, another 15 minutes passed. Time seemed to stand still. I tried my best not to look at the stretcher, but my eyes kept drifting back to that white shroud. My entire focus was trapped under that white shroud. Deep in my mind, there was only one terror. What if it moved again? And then my worst fears were proven true. Suddenly, the corpse began to tremble on its own. This wasn't just a slight twitch anymore. It felt as if someone was violently shaking it. The tremors grew intense, violent. It felt like my sanity was shattering at the sight. With every ounce of strength in my body, I screamed for the caretaker. "Uncle, oh uncle, look what's happening. Please wake up." But something felt wrong. The caretaker couldn't hear me. There was no response from him. He sat there, motionless as a corpse himself, slumped in his chair. I was huddled in a dark corner of the corridor, with that stretcher and the body between us. My brain stopped functioning. On one side, the macabre dance of the corpse. On the other, the caretaker's unnatural sleep. The two combined to break me mentally. For a moment, the violent crashing of the body slowed down. I gathered a sliver of courage. Pressing my back against the wall, I crept slightly closer, staying at a safe distance, and called out again, "Uncle, please wake up." I felt like the most helpless person on earth. Seeing such movement from a dead body made my courage, logic, and belief crumble into dust. I used to think of myself as brave. I never believed in ghosts. But what I was seeing now defied all science and logic. I began to mutter Surah Al-Falaq and Surah An-Nas, but my lips were trembling so hard that no sound came out. A cold shiver ran down my spine, as if my blood had turned to ice. The corridor felt like a massive coffin, and I was a living person trapped inside it. Suddenly I remembered the phone in my pocket. With shaking hands I pulled it out and called Kobir. I tried again and again. But each time a mechanical voice told me the connection wasn't possible. Fear consumed me. I closed my eyes tight and started praying to Allah with all my soul. Just then, a heavy, tired voice drifted from a distance. "My duty is over, I'm going to sleep. Don't leave the body alone." I snapped my eyes open. It was the caretaker. I watched him walk toward the dark end of the corridor. I opened my mouth to call him, but before I could, I heard a door open and then slam shut. At that moment, I realized that the only exit was that way. The stretcher was positioned in a way that left very little room to pass. I was on one side, the corpse was in the middle, and the dark exit was on the other side. My heart was pounding in my throat. I knew I couldn't stay there for another second. I had to get out. The flickering lights, the freezing air, and the fishy smell of the corpse made the environment feel like hell. I tried to carefully squeeze past the stretcher. Just as I was parallel to the body, I felt it. Someone or something gripped the corner of my shirt tightly. My heart stopped for a second. Darkness clouded my vision. My legs shook violently. I lurched forward, and the stretcher swung violently. I lost my balance and fell directly onto the corpse. The moment my body touched the cold flesh, it felt like falling onto a block of ice. It was so cold, so rigid. I scrambled to get away, but in my haste, my back slammed hard against the wall. I felt a sharp pain, but terror outweighed the physical hurt. I screamed so loud that my throat felt raw, but the sound only echoed back from the four walls. No help came. Then I looked at the corpse. What I saw drained the last of my strength. The body wasn't just shaking anymore. It was twisting and contorting, as if its bones were snapping and grinding inside. The familiar, kind face of Kobir's father had transformed into the most terrifying thing on earth. I had never seen a dead body move like this. Then came the impossible. The corpse began to try and sit up. A gurgling, rattling sound started coming from its throat. My breaking point had arrived. I began to sob uncontrollably. I saw the ultimate horror. The man Kobir and I had carried here as a corpse was struggling to sit up before my very eyes. I felt that dying would be easier than witnessing this. I was so terrified, I couldn't even remember a prayer. My body couldn't bear the weight of the fear anymore. The last thing I remember is fainting. I don't know how much time passed, but when I regained consciousness, everything was silent. Before I even opened my eyes, that final image was seared into my brain. I wondered if I was still alive. Slowly I opened my eyes, and I wished I hadn't. Because the body was exactly where I had seen it before I blacked out. It was still, but its neck was twisted at an impossible, unnatural angle. I let out a scream of pure terror because the corpse was looking right at me. I screamed with all my might, and then everything went dark again. I lost consciousness for the second time. Right before I passed out, I felt a spark. When I regained consciousness for the second time, the familiar smell of hospital medicine hit my nose. I opened my eyes. My body was still shivering, as if from a feverish delirium. With a voice mixed with anger, resentment, and fear, I said, You took me to that hell of a dead house? Do you know how many times I called you? You didn't pick up the phone. You have no idea what happened to me. Listen to me, Kabir replied. The police took me to the station for questioning. They wouldn't let me go and had confiscated my phone. As I was speaking, Kabir's expression made it seem like he didn't fully believe me, as if he thought I was imagining it all. But looking at my physical condition, my bloodshot eyes and my uncontrollable shivering, he didn't protest. If I had known even a little bit that something like this would happen, I never would have gone. Afterward, Kabir himself dropped me off at our mess hostel. I had to undergo extensive psychological treatment because to everyone else, this was just a delusion or a hallucination. The doctor explained that what I had seen was rigor mortis, the stiffening of a body after death. Dear listeners, that was today's story. This incident was shared with me by my cousin's friend, Kamal. But the tragic part is, Kamal Bai is no more. When his body was found, his mouth was wide open. Furthermore, he had no history of heart problems that could explain such a sudden occurrence.